you're joining us today, we will be working from our art kit doing lemon. So grab your paint card, some water, paintbrushes, and a paper towel, and let's go. So let's get ready to paint our lemon. So for this painting, I've got my little card of paints. When yours arrives to you, these will be hardened, which is exactly what we want. It's exactly as you would find it if you were using a pan of watercolors. You're just gonna activate it with a little bit of water. I have a little container of water, and then I do have a little plate. This is going to help me to mix some of my colors on here and just make sure that they're exactly how I want them. I also have the little 3x3 watercolor paper, and then I have a couple of brushes. So watercolor brushes are wonderful. Not everybody has them, and that's okay. I would just caution against any kind of flat brushes, which are the ones that are more square. I am probably going to be using these two. Both of them are rounded, which means that when wet, they will make more of a point at the tip, which is going to help me with a lot of my detail work and staying exactly in the lines where I want to be. So I have a 4-inch round brush, and then I have a detailed round brush, which I won't be using until the very end. I also have this brush. This is a Neptune, which is a great starting brush for people, but I think this one is the bristles are a little too soft for what I would like to achieve today. In our lemon, I also have a pencil. You don't have to use a pencil, but I do like to use a pencil. The key is to make your sketch lines quite light. So I'm gonna start off with my lemon. I have to remember that this is only a 3x3 paper. So for placement, I wanna leave some edging. And I'm not even gonna sketch the entire thing. I'm just gonna give myself a little bit of framework. And then I might even have like a stem coming up. Okay, but I've got a little bit of a framework for my lemon. Now I'm going to get my brush wet with some water, and I'm gonna start with wet on wet. So basically what that means is anywhere that I want the paint to go right now, I'm going to put down a layer of clean water. And for this part is the lemon. I want the entire lemon to get a good first coat of paint, not the stem, just the entire lemon. Wet on wet is great for your first layer. It's gonna really help the colors to blend seamlessly. So I don't know if you can see, but when I tilt it, you can see exactly where I've put the water for this. And now I'm gonna start with my lemon yellow. And again, I want to wet my brush. If I take this paint straight up, it's gonna be intense. That's why I do prefer to have another plate handy, because I can get it to the consistency that I want. I want it to be a thin layer. It's going to look almost see-through, and that's okay. I might add a little bit more, okay? But I'm gonna touch it to the water. I don't have to do too much work. The water will kind of move it around a little bit. And this is where your watercolor brush with the nice point is going to help. We want to avoid puddles, so that is something to note. A little paper towel will definitely help you if you're noticing some puddles. We're going to try and avoid some puddles. While my paint is still wet, I'm going to get some of my cadmium yellow. And I'm also going to move it over to my palette. Now where I'm going to put this cadmium yellow, I'm thinking that this is going to be the lightest part of my lemon right in here. So I'm going to start working the cadmium lemon, or the cadmium yellow, from the ends of the lemon and the underside of the lemon. For this, when you're adding in your darker contrast, I like to just kind of tap some in. I do a little bit of a tapping motion. You might be like, it's so dark. Don't worry. If it's too dark, clean your brush off. This is still wet on wet, so you can just use a clean brush with some water and just kind of help the darker color to disperse a little bit. There we go. And I know it sounds crazy, but I'm also going to take a little bit of the Hooker's green, add it to my plate. Now for this, I do think I want to add some yellow to it. There we go. This is where you have to have a very light hand. You're going to come up towards where the stem is, and you are going to dab in just the tiniest bit of green. Clean that brush off if you feel like it's too much, and dab it there. It'll kind of take it away a little bit. I don't want it to be completely gone. I just want it to kind of center more at the very point of the lemon where the stem would be. There we go. I'm also going to come in and I'm going to take a tiny bit of burnt umber, like you can see there's hardly any burnt umber on there. And I'm going to come down to this bottom edge and I'm just going to tap in a little bit of burnt umber. I can take some of it back. Don't forget, that's why we're doing a nice wet on wet. Okay, I can even go in and add a bit more of my cadmium yellow right down here. I just want this part of my lemon to feel a little bit heavier, a little bit darker. And you just play around with it until it's becoming how you want it. I do think I'm going to add a tiny bit of my cadmium yellow there, and then grab a paper towel if you have one handy. This is not necessary, but if I want this part to really be highlighted, I can just wrap my finger with a paper towel and it's still wet. So if I just kind of dab it, do you see how it takes some of the paint away and it makes it more of a true highlight? Okay, so this is our first layer and it needs to dry. So now is a great time to pause the video and go grab a cup of tea. And then when we come back, we are going to add our details. My lemon is completely dry, so I'm ready to begin phase 2. This is where I'm going to be taking my smaller detailed brush. I'm going to get it a little bit wet and I'm going to kind of wipe this side on the edge of, or wipe the brush on the edge of the bowl because I don't want a lot of water. A lot of water is going to make it much harder to control my paint. And I'm going to come in with some more of the green. And I'm going to come right up to the top of my lemon. And this is where I'm going to start doing my stem. I had drawn my stem a little bit curved. And I noticed that most of the lemon stems are a little bit wider right where they connect. So I'm also going to head in with a little bit of the burnt umber. Again, not too much water. And we're going to touch it to the area closer to the lemon, closest to the lemon. And kind of just work its way up a little bit. I also want to take a little bit of that burnt umber. Now that my lemon is dry, I'll be able to add some details. So this is going to be wet on dry. My paint is a little bit wet, my brush is a little bit wet, but the paper is dry. So I'm going to have a lot more control over where my paint goes. But that being said, it does appear more vibrant usually. If you're noticing that your line looks too blunt, just get a little bit of water. You can see I'm even like kind of rubbing it against my fingers to make sure it's just the tiniest bit damp, and you just kind of feather it in. If your brush is too wet when you feather, what's going to happen is you're going to see water rings. Not the end of the world. You can feather those out or you can leave them. A lot of people do that on purpose for artistic preference. I'm also going to take some of this burnt umber and I'm going to come down to this bottom part. I do want this part to be quite a bit darker. I also want to adjust the shape down here just a little bit. I'm still going to go in and feather this out. Just the edge right there. I'm also going to grab a little bit more of my cadmium yellow. And I'm going to bring it along this side. Now, I'm going to get a little bit of water on my brush, but keep it on a bit more, like I'm not getting it too dried off, because I do want to add a little bit more of my cadmium yellow, and I want it to be quite a strong color. Wet on wet for our first layer is a great technique, but a lot of times it does mute the colors. So you have to come in with a second layer, sometimes even a third layer, and just make sure that your colors are vibrant enough. So again, I'm also adding some of this cadmium yellow down here. You'll notice that I like to do like a side brush when I'm trying to spread the color like this. And that just helps me to feather it out. I'll now get a little bit of the lemon yellow, just a little bit, and kind of put it right here where I think my lemon might be brightest. I'm avoiding that area right here where I had taken some of the paint off with the paper towel earlier. Okay. I think I need a bit more of my burnt umber just up here. Almost tapping it in just to really make it look like, and down here, this is really like the ends of the lemon. If you wanted to, you could have a leaf showing. Because the paper is so small, the leaf wouldn't be, you wouldn't probably be able to see the entire leaf, but you can definitely add a leaf coming out right here. I think I'm gonna stop right here. I'm pretty happy with my lemon. And then the last thing that I might do is write the word lemon right here. So I'll just take my pencil again. I don't have the best handwriting and I want to be very light with this. But you can just write lemon, you can write citron, anything like that. And this will be ready to be framed.